Imagine a man standing on a podium, a gold belt wrapped around his waist, recognized as the best 125-pound fighter on the planet. Now, imagine that same man, less than 48 hours later, punching a time clock at 6 a.m. in a freezing warehouse in Tacoma, Washington. While the stars of the UFC were buying Ferraris and living in mansions, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson was operating a forklift. He wasn't just a fighter who used to have a job. He was a world-class athlete who fought for world titles while having industrial dust under his fingernails and a metal rod freezing inside his hand. Demetrious Johnson is a paradox. He is the most technically complete fighter to ever step into a cage, yet he was often the least promoted. He broke records that may never be touched, only to be traded away like a surplus asset. Today, we chronicle the journey of a man who didn't just master the Octagon, he mastered the grind. This is the story of the blue-collar GOAT. To understand the fighter, you have to understand the kid from Parkland. Demetrious didn't have a traditional upbringing. He was raised by his mother Karen, who was deaf. In a world of noise, DJ learned to communicate through observation. He didn't realize his mother was different for years. He just thought that was how life worked. This upbringing developed a heightened sense of awareness, a sixth sense that would later allow him to read an opponent's smallest muscle twitch before they even threw a punch. But home wasn't always a sanctuary. DJ never met his biological father, and his stepfather was reportedly a shadow of abuse in the household. Sports became his escape. At Washington High School, he wasn't just a wrestler, he was a standout in track and cross country. He didn't run because he loved it. He ran because he knew that if he never got tired, he could never be beaten. Despite being an elite wrestler with college offers on the table, DJ made a choice that defined his character. He stayed home. He chose a local community college and a full-time job to support his family. He wasn't looking for glory, he was looking for stability. This is the era fans often forget. Long after he turned professional, DJ was a, quote, working man. He worked at an industrial recycling warehouse that manufactured heavy-duty paper products, specifically those massive cardboard tubes used as forms for pouring concrete pillars in construction. His life was a brutal cycle. Wake up at 5 a.m., work the 6 to 3 shift, lift 150-pound piles of industrial paper, wrap pallets, operate the forklift. Then, and only then, would he drive to the gym to train until 9 p.m. The most legendary story of his grit comes from a winter in Washington. DJ had broken his hand in a fight, and surgeons had placed a K-wire, a literal metal rod, inside his thumb to hold the bone together. Because the warehouse wasn't climate-controlled, the metal rod would absorb the sub-zero temperatures. Every time he gripped a lever on his forklift, the rod would freeze inside his hand, sending shooting pains through his arm. He didn't quit. He didn't ask for time off. He even fought MMA legends like Kid Yamamoto and Miguel Torres while still working this shift. It wasn't until 2011, when he was scheduled to fight Dominic Cruz for the UFC bantamweight title, that his coach, Matt Hume, finally told him, "Demetrious, you're fighting for a world title. It's time to stop the 40-hour work week." When the UFC created the Flyweight division in 2012, they found their king immediately. DJ became the inaugural champion, and what followed was a reign of terror so quiet and efficient it almost felt routine. He defended that belt 11 consecutive times, a UFC record. But there was a problem. The UFC, led by Dana White, didn't know how to sell perfection. They wanted trash talkers and blood and guts brawlers. DJ was a scientist. He didn't get hit, he dismantled people. The beef between DJ and the UFC brass began to simmer. Dana White publicly claimed that DJ wasn't a draw, and that fans didn't want to see the small guys fight. Meanwhile, DJ was pointing out the pay disparity, noting that fighters with 0 wins were making more than a dominant champion. The tension snapped when DJ refused to be bullied into a super fight with TJ Dillashaw unless the UFC guaranteed the weight cut and the purse. In retaliation, Dana White famously threatened to close the entire flyweight division. Imagine being the best in the world at what you do, and your boss responds by trying to delete your entire department. Yet, in the midst of this drama, DJ gave us the mighty whiz bar. In a title defense against Ray Borg, DJ suplexed him, and while Borg was still flying through the air, DJ caught his arm and transitioned into an armbar before they even hit the ground. It was the most athletic feat in the history of the sport, a middle finger to anyone who called him boring. In 2018, after a razor-thin split decision loss to Henry Cejudo, the UFC did the unthinkable. In the first player trade in MMA history, they sent Demetrious Johnson to one championship in exchange for Ben Askren. The UFC thought they were getting rid of a non-draw. What they actually did was set DJ free. In Asia, martial arts is built on Bushido, honor and respect. DJ wasn't just a fighter there, he was a god. He didn't have an easy path either. He had to navigate a flyweight Grand Prix and suffered his first ever knockout loss to Adriano Moraes via a grounded knee. But like the warehouse worker who never quit, DJ came back. In the rematch, he delivered a poetic flying knee knockout of his own to reclaim the gold. He even fought Rodtang, the most dangerous Muay Thai striker on earth, in a special rules bout, surviving the striking round to secure a submission in the MMA round. He proved, beyond any doubt, that his fight IQ was the highest the world had ever seen. In September 2024, Demetrious Johnson retired. He didn't leave on his back, beaten and broken like so many legends. He left as a champion, the first ever inductee into the One Championship Hall of Fame. When you look at the resume, it's undeniable. 11 UFC title defenses, 14 world titles across 2 major organizations, the mighty whiz bar, 0 failed drug tests, 0 scandals. Demetrious Johnson proved that you don't have to be a loudmouth or a villain to be a legend. You just have to be undeniable. He took the discipline he learned in that freezing Tacoma warehouse and applied it to the art of human combat. He is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, the gold standard for technical excellence. Many will argue about who the greatest of all time is. They'll mention John Jones, GSP, or Anderson Silva. But if you value skill over spectacle and character over controversy, there is only one name at the top of that list. Demetrious Johnson was the man who worked the forklift until the world forced him to hold the trophy. He didn't need the UFC's approval to be great. He already knew who he was. A champion, a worker, a legend. Paradox resolved. I'll see you in the next Chronicle.